for Trevor Gertensen. I'm wearing makeup. It's not really a big deal because it's 2022, but it might explain why I love Halloween so much. Not for the reason that a lot of you may think. The reason I love Halloween is because it's the one day a year where people essentially dress up like me. But here's the weird thing, I can't do the same thing, because if I were to dress up as Bob the accountant, people just go, oh look, Trevor finally got his shit together. I don't get heckled that much, but I had one guy yell at me, he goes, hey, Pirates of the Caribbean! I want to come on your face. Which I thought was bleak. But here's the thing, the guy that yelled at, he was a big guy. He could have made that shit happen if he wanted to. This body was not made for fighting, it was made for heroin. But I do like social interaction. I was actually on the strip, and I heard some guy sneeze, and out of habit, I said, bless you. And the person turned to me and said, hey, I am an atheist. And unless you can excuse someone without pointing out their religion or lack thereof, I would suggest you don't say anything at all. I said, Jesus. I like to read, but I never really thought that self-help books were all that informative, right? But I found out there's this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it turns out that book was Charles Manson's favorite book. He used the skills from that book to get a bunch of people to trust him to join a cult that he would later have murder for them. Then I found out there's another killer called the Chessboard Killer out in Russia. It was also his favorite book. He used that skills to get 60 people to trust him that he would later draw on to kill. Now there's only one other person I know that has read this book, and that is my wife. And as far as I know, she hasn't killed anybody. Which makes me think she's not much of a go-getter. I don't know, I do read too much, and I was reading this article about a 22-year-old girl that was eaten alive by her pit bulls. And after that, I started reading all these reviews after that, and see, that's why people shouldn't be allowed to own a pit bull. That's exactly the reason why. And I was like, well, that's why she shouldn't be allowed to own a pit bull. Right? Because you have to have an animal that's appropriate for who you are. I have a 2-pound cat. That way if the shit goes down, I can probably get out of there. Right? There's this guy in Maine, he was taking his new puppy for a walk, a bear came out of the woods, he punched the bear and kicked it, the bear ran away. That guy can own a pit bull. He may own that bear. As much as I like to read, I've been watching a lot of documentaries, and I started watching this documentary about prostitution in the 70s, and as it turns out, I know absolutely nothing about prostitution. So as I'm watching this, I started thinking, I see the pimps taking all this money and never giving anything back to the women. And I started thinking, how much of a cut does a pimp get? And I had no idea, so I took to Google. And I typed in the words, how much of a cut does a pimp get from his hoe? Which is probably the whitest thing I've ever written in my entire life. And it came up with all these search results with interviews with pimps, and as it turns out, pimps are an unreliable source of information. Yeah, I did not learn anything. But now I have this concern, because I live in Chicago, sometimes my mom will come to visit. She'll want to use my computer. Because it's an expensive city, she'll type in the words, how much? And the first thing that will pop up is, what cut does the pimp get from his hoe? Which makes me sound really concerned about the pimp. Is not the side you want to be on. Oh, guys, I tell you, that's the, I think the one thing they tell you, like, I'm married and I love it. I absolutely love it. And they tell you that you have to spice things up in the bedroom, right, to keep the relationship strong. And we took that bad advice. And we went to one of those stores to get a sex swing. Saw how expensive the sex swings were, and we're like, how about the door swing? Let's take it down a notch. If you haven't had sex with a door swing, let me explain how it works. Basically, you take all this bondage gear out of the box, you put it on the other person, you hang them on a door. I keep saying, yeah, I'm really concerned. Sir, you should not know this. You hang them on a door. You stare at each other uncomfortably. Then you take them off the door and have sex in the bed like a normal person. That's how you have sex with a door swing. The one thing I did find, like, I was talking about watching TV, is advertising. I don't think, we got kind of lucky now. We can stream everything, so you don't have to watch commercials. But I was actually watching a video on YouTube, and it cut in the middle, and it said, hey, are you tired of living in a prison of your own fat? Well, that hurts. But no, and, but I was trying to figure out, like, because, like, back in the day, commercials used to be really positive, right? They used to just be like, hey, you want to buy our soap? Sexy people have sex with you. I was like, no, that sounds good.